Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jay, and Cyberpunk just got hit with its biggest update today with Update 2.0, and I gotta say, I'm absolutely 100% loving my time with it. But Jay, your title says, I know, we'll get there soon, boys, we'll get there soon, I promise. We all know the early days of Cyberpunk, the handful of delays, the slightly predatory marketing, and the long-awaited release that was absolutely horrific at launch. I still can't believe they removed this game from the PlayStation Store because the launch was that bad. Like, what? Anyone who played Cyberpunk on console when it first released had everything but a good time. Looking back on old gameplay, it makes me honestly believe that I would have rather enjoyed putting my dick in a pencil sharpener than play Cyberpunk in that state.
Like I'm screwing a goddamn pencil sharpener!
I was one of the fortunate souls who had a decent enough PC to actually handle Cyberpunk's issues. My original experience was far from perfect, but I still enjoyed myself when it was released. I loved the design of the world and most aspects of the gameplay. Obviously, I enjoyed the story for more reasons other than Keanu Reeves, but Keanu Reeves too, boys.
You're breathtaking!
But after so many delays, the game was far from what was promised, and the original release absolutely scorched CD Projekt Red's reputation. As time moved on though, CD Projekt Red kept working, and after a while of releasing bug fix after bug fix and the occasional small content release, once the smoke settled, CDPR released the Edge Runners update. This update came with some cool new weapons and clothes, but what made this update so great was it was released alongside the Edge Runners anime. And dog, even anti-weebs loved this show. But we ain't here to talk about anime, boys, because recently CD Projekt Red has released Cyberpunk's biggest update yet in anticipation of Cyberpunk's first and last expansion, Phantom Liberty. So yeah, I've been playing a ton of Cyberpunk again, and I'm absolutely loving my time with it. I decided to completely replay the game because that's what everyone was recommending to me, and I'm happy I did too because they've changed so much about Cyberpunk, and it's all for the better too. They've completely overhauled the perk system, builds feel a lot more impactful now, and I feel like they've actually made it easier to customize your playstyle and made it feel more viable. For my new playthrough, I wanted to try out the reworked melee combat skill tree, so I went to the closest Ripper dock and got some badass Mantis blades once I was actually able to afford them. And man, wow, I've had so much fun with this melee build. There's just something about chopping up enemies and deflecting their bullets right back at them that's so damn satisfying. I always liked the melee combat in Cyberpunk, especially the katanas, but now with the reworked perk system, everything feels so much better. And you can definitely feel your power growing as you invest more points into the reflex skill tree. Another thing about the new skill tree system is I actually feel like I know what's happening a little bit better compared to the previous skill tree. The way CDPR laid everything out is super clean, so even the smooth brains like myself can figure out how to create a build that fits my playstyle. It makes me super excited to try out other builds too. I want to try out the changes to quick hacking because they made some changes to make it more interesting. NPCs can now track your location once you execute certain quick hacks, so you gotta think a little bit more about your decisions while you're sneaking around and hacking enemies. I think this change is super cool, and I'm really stoked to try a Netrunner build in my next playthrough. Another big change that came with the 2.0 update is the revamped cyberware system. Cyberware now affects your armor stat, and you can only have a certain amount of cyberware unless you spec into having more as you level. And I've been messing around a lot with cyberware, especially since it definitely fits my Mantis blade playstyle. I've been loving swapping parts out and testing out what works best with my build. I've fallen in love with the Sandevistan because it slows down time, and some of my perks actually coincide nicely with this effect as I can deflect bullets easier. It's just so damn fun to cut up as many enemies as possible before the slowed effect wears off. But yeah, I've been messing around a lot with cyberware, spending all my eddies, which has kind of forced me to play a ton of the side gigs, which, you know, gives you money. I don't really remember messing around with them too much when I first played Cyberpunk a few years ago, and I definitely didn't mess with the cyberware. So I'm super happy that they've made cyberware a more important aspect of the game due to the changes to the armor stat. They've made some changes to the enemy NPCs too. I've been playing on the harder difficulty, and it's been a good challenge. It hasn't felt frustrating in any way, and I think it's due to all the changes to the perk and cyberware systems. My build still feels powerful, and yeah, I did get one-tapped by bosses or melted by a group of enemies, but it's always due to me playing a situation poorly, and after a few attempts, I can usually overcome each situation. I don't want to go through every single change they've made because they've made a lot of changes, but I do want to quickly talk about the updated police system. The new police are so much better than how they were previously. The old system was laughably bad in my opinion. Now the police will actually be patrolling most areas of Night City, so if you run someone over, they'll immediately start looking for you, and you can hear the police over their comms talking about the crime you committed. If you suck at driving like I do, and you accidentally smash into someone's car, sometimes they'll even report that, and the police will start looking for you. This new police system feels a lot more immersive and actually adds an additional mechanic that's super fun. Kind of like GTA, there's 5-star levels depending on how badly the cops want you. Once you hit max level, they'll send max tech on your ass, and that shit is absolutely wild. Overall though, I'm happy they finally fixed the police because the previous system just felt so weird having the cops literally just teleport on top of you. I really did enjoy this fix. Another change worth noting is the improved driving, NPC driving included. The roads feel a lot more congested and alive, and I think you'll either love this or hate it. I've definitely been smashing into cars a lot more often, but I personally found it more fun trying to maneuver some of the more congested roads in Night City. I'll usually end up killing some poor NPC on the road 9 times out of 10, but it's still super fun. They also added vehicle combat, which which feels surprisingly good, and it's not something that I expected to enjoy as much as I did. Like I said, there's so much that's changed about Cyberpunk, everything from the new UI to the new radio stations. But Cyberpunk at its core is still the great game that I played a few years ago, but now it's even better. It's way more polished, and it feels like the game that it was supposed to be when it launched. I'm really happy with this new update, and a lot of people are too. I mean, the player count shot up by more than 600%. I'm also super stoked to jump into the Phantom Liberty expansion when I'm done with the main quest. I've been hearing a bunch of great things about it, and I've heard it's even the best part of Cyberpunk. But here's my problem with the whole situation. Before we continue though, I feel like I've made it very clear that I'm happy with these changes, and I'm really happy that CD Projekt Red actually kept putting in the effort to fix their game. But I'm worried this is how every AAA game is going to be in the future. Release a barely functioning product and then fix it over the years. Hell, I mean, we're practically there already. I'd say the majority of AAA games have this issue, and don't get me started on live service games. We all know that games these days take forever to make, a lot longer than they used to, so it's not really a surprise the majority of games that do release in a broken state. Cyberpunk was delayed 4 times, and look how it was released. While I love that CD Projekt Red has put in the effort to fix their game and make it better, I can't help but feel a little weary because Cyberpunk 2.0 is literally the Cyberpunk that we were promised. The Cyberpunk that was advertised to us. It just came almost 3 years after the game was initially released. Everyone is praising Cyberpunk now, and yes, I do think most of this praise is deserved, but we still can't forget the road that led us here. I feel the same way about games like No Man's Sky. While I'm happy that these developers didn't take their money and run off without ever fixing anything, but they still released these games in a bad state and lied to us about what the game was supposed to be. I know I just made a video on how I liked Starfield, but even Todd Howard is known for his lying. Lying just to hype up their own damn games. But I'm afraid that other game developers, let me correct that, corporate executives, I'm afraid these torpos are going to see the positive response to these updates like Update 2.0 and think that it's even more okay to release a half-baked game and fix it after launch. Like, we rarely get a functioning game at launch anymore. That's why Baldur's Gate 3 is so praised, because it worked, and it worked well. Yeah, it was in early access, but the finished product was exactly what was marketed, and people loved it. Elden Ring is a great example of this too. It's just sad to see that getting a finished game that's good on release and not being lied to during its marketing phase is so damn rare. I guess the main point I'm trying to make is that I really love the changes that CD Projekt Red has made to Cyberpunk, and I'm loving my time with it again. I genuinely think it's a fantastic game, but it leaves a bitter taste in my mouth because it's hard for me to praise a game that's finally gotten fixed 3 years after its initial release. Mudahar from Some Ordinary Gamers talked about this in his most recent Cyberpunk video. Coming from his perspective of being a big Cyberpunk fan, he still brought up good points that some of these changes aren't even that impressive. Look at the police system. GTA had the police system figured out more than 15 years ago. He makes a lot of great points, and if you want to hear more, I highly recommend checking out his video. Overall though, boys, this is just the state of gaming in general. Companies are going to keep pulling this shit until the end of time. We live in a time where most companies just want to make a game that prints money like Genshin Impact. I just think it's important to remember the road that Cyberpunk took to get to this point. I'm really loving my time with Cyberpunk again though, and I'm happy that the game is finally in the state that it was supposed to be in. Let me know how you guys have been enjoying the new Cyberpunk update. Do you think it's okay to release a half-baked game and then fix it over the next couple years? Let me know in the comments below. But anyways, I think it's a great place to call today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.